Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily Hand, and I am a board member for the Home Depot. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. And Michael?
My name is Mike Wojciechowski. I'm actually chairman of a holding company that is involved in probably 40 different companies. So too much time to explain them all now. I also teach new venture creation in an entrepreneurial department.
Fantastic. It seems like you are in Hawaii at the moment.
In my mind, I'm always in Hawaii.
That is very nice. And my name is Knocklin. I'm the controller at a construction company where we focus on embedding sustainability initiatives into the built environment and everything that we do. All right. Well, why don't we hand it over? Quick, brief introduction to the BMR Solutions team. Why don't we start with Anna, and then you can call out the next person.
Hi, I'm Anna. I am the legal analyst for BMR Solutions.
Hi, I'm Yam. I'm the financial analyst of BMR.
Hi, I'm Fiona, and I'm the financial analyst as well at BMR Solutions.
Hi, I'm Dina. I'm ESG analyst at BMR Solutions.
Hey, I'm Eddie. I'm also an ESG analyst at BMR Solutions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. So you'll have 25 minutes to do your presentation. Again, I will give you 5-minute warning when the time is right and no interruptions on any of the judges, and we will go off camera to kind of help with the bandwidth as well. All right. Whenever you are ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected members of the Home Depot Executive Board. On behalf of BMR Solutions, we are here today to present an amazing opportunity to adopt innovative solar solutions for a more circular world. First, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Dina, the ESG analyst.
I'm Eddie. I'm also the ESG analyst.
I'm Fiona. I'm a financial analyst.
I'm Yam. I'm the financial analyst as well.
And I'm Anna. I'm the legal advisor.
Okay, let's dive into the core problem we hope to address today: solar panel degradation and waste. Despite being known as a leading player in clean renewable energy, solar panels have a much darker drawback: unsustainable production and disposal. Their production presents two significant environmental challenges. First, mining for necessary materials like silicone, silver, and aluminum destroys habitats, pollutes air and waterways, and threatens biodiversity. In countries like Mexico, China, Peru, and Chile, mining has caused heavy metal contamination for their key waterways, as well as displacement of important indigenous communities. Second, at the end of a solar panel's life cycle, valuable materials are often discarded rather than recycled. This wasteful take, make, dispose model depletes resources and increases electronic toxic waste. This leads to environmental pollution and health risks for stakeholders, highlighting the need for circular solutions in solar panel disposal. According to the International Renewable Energy Agency, by 2050, 78 million tons of solar waste will have accumulated globally. In order to reach the worldwide goal of 100% renewable energy by 2050, the demand for some of the materials and resources will become dangerously high. For example, at current solar technology and current recycling rates, solar power's demand for silver could be more than 50% of the world's reserves. There is an ethical opportunity here to recover precious material that may otherwise be lost and to make green energy sustainable again. Our solution was created in alignment with SDG 12, which focuses on sustainable consumption and production patterns. We are addressing a critical challenge: the lack of practical solutions for solar panel disposal. We will be particularly focusing on the sub-goals that aim to reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. And we also encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices to integrate sustainability information into their reporting cycle.
Thank you, Dina. Now I'm going to give an overview of each of the companies that are a part of our solution. First is SolarCycle. a recycling company based in Texas with locations in Arizona and Georgia. They have raised over $37 million in funding and are committed to circularity as their company closes the loop in solar manufacturing by reintegrating recycled materials into the supply chain. Second is Home Depot, a Fortune 500 company with over 2,300 locations across North America. Additionally, more than 80 of your stores are operating solar farms on their roofs, and electricity generating fuel cells are in more than 200 of your stores. However, you are not living up to your true potential.
To address these issues, BMR Solutions proposes a strategic alliance between Solar Cycle, a growing leader in solar panel recycling, and Home Depot. You sell and provide installation for countless residential communities. However, there is still a gap between the consumer and proper solar panel recycling. Home Depot's hand in the final installation of solar panels provides an opportunity for you to become a key point to bring back and store end-of-life panels and to prepare them for transportation and collection by Solar Cycle. You are the missing link in this process. You can bridge the gap between consumers and Solar Cycle's recycling centers. Without you, the recycling step may never take place. You have an opportunity to leverage your expertise and resources to provide increased accessibility to solar panel recycling. Home Depot is the arc that completes the circularity of the solar panel lifecycle.
We want to take the time to acknowledge Home Depot's extensive outline for its commitments and sustainability goals. Your company prides itself on, quote, doing the right thing for our customers, our communities, and the environment. You have organized your initiatives into 5 pillars: carbon emissions, sustainable forestry, water conservation, responsible chemistry, and most importantly, circularity. Home Depot turns waste into opportunity. Materials that are usually thrown out can be recycled and reimagined. Recycling materials reduces the need for natural resources in the manufacturing process. For example, expanded polystyrene, or EPS, is an effective packaging material. However, it takes more than a century to biodegrade. Therefore, Home Depot has created a robust recycling system, allowing EPS to be transformed into insulation that can be sold to companies and used in future developments. Additionally, you have committed to producing and procuring renewable energy for 100% of your stores worldwide by 2030.
Beyond your core values, Home Depot is very influential in the solar industry, both as a retailer and investor in solar energy for your own operations. As a major solar provider, you sell a wide range of solar-related products and promote the adoption of solar as a means to combat carbon emissions.
Despite this much-needed promotion and adoption, there is little evidence that Home Depot has addressed the industry's darker side: the environmental toll of manufacturing and disposal. Solar panels require resource-intensive production, and with innovation and subsequent replacements on the rise, they contribute to the growing waste challenge and issues the industry is increasingly under pressure to solve through recycling and circular practices.
You have an opportunity here to expand your pillar of circularity and hone in on the advocacy for end-of-life solar panel management. In the past, you have adopted strategies toward expanding accessibility to recycling, specifically in the realm of rechargeable batteries. If so, why not advocate for the accessibility of solar recycling as well? The production and consumption of solar panels should not be a linear process, but a circular one. By partnering with Solar Cycle, Home Depot advances its circularity pillar by establishing a cooperative to ensure sustainable solar panel recycling. A company of your scale has the influence to drive sustainable manufacturing and recycling standards. Failing to invest in this initiative would be a missed opportunity and a contradiction of your long-standing commitments. Together, we can turn 2,300 stores into hubs for sustainable energy solutions, starting with a Texas pilot in a booming solar market. Now I'll hand it off to Fiona, who will cover the financial aspects of this proposal.
Hi, I'm Fiona, and I'll be talking about everybody's favorite part. Let's talk money. So the question here is, what is in it for Home Depot? Home Depot already does the installing of solar panels, but SolarCycle has everything else that they're going to need for the end of life process for these panels. Now, Home Depot, you have an opportunity to bring in more customers and more loyalty with the services that SolarCycle will provide, because people stick to what they know, but they also stick to what is easiest. And a one-stop location is what the people need. SolarCycle will keep labor costs low by using automation and scaled infrastructure to reduce recycling logistics cost. So, when we talk about the benefits, what is Home Depot doing to help? Now, as mentioned before, Home Depot has pledged to reduce CO2 emissions 50% by 2035. And what does that help with Home Depot? Oh, sorry. What is that going to do for Home Depot? So, by partnering with SolarCycle, there will be brand equity. By updating their ESG profile and supporting its goal to reduce these emissions as they state on their website and their ESG profile, this will boost customer loyalty and solar sales as a whole, because like we said before, it is a one-stop location for you, Home Depot, if you partner with SolarCycle. If your brand is already having a circular process of these panels where they can buy, recycle them, and return these panels, then this will bring in more foot traffic in your stores and bring in more customer loyalty where they can buy more materials, since Home Depot doesn't only participate on the solar side. And like we said before, this connects to your circular pillar because we'll be reusing materials like copper and silicone to cut future procurement costs that connects to circularity. Now, infrastructure and cost. As we can see, a mid-tier recycling plant charges $100 to $200K just to do one panel, and it'll process 500 to 600 kg per hour efficiently. That's very slow, and it's so expensive to do it. Now, when you compare that to a large scale operation, and as we mentioned before, we're talking SolarCycle here, it's $18 per panel. And with their scaled infrastructure and their automation, it's cutting procurement costs by a lot. When you compare the two, it's a big difference in speed and expenses. Now, when we look at state tax credits, there's a 30% tax credit and federal support for solar energy as we try to switch to a more sustainable world. But I'm going to turn it to Yam, my coworker, who will talk to you more about this.
Thank you, Fiona. More on tax incentives. So we got state tax credits, programs like California AB 1238 and Arizona HB 2133 offers tax deduction or rebates to offset recycling costs, making the process more affordable. Then we got federal tax incentive. The Inflation Reduction Act provides a 30% tax credit for residential solar installation, meaning more people are encouraged to adopt solar panels, indirectly increasing recycling demand. Then lastly, we got the regulatory penalty. By recycling instead of landfilling, Home Depot saved $49 million in hazardous waste and disposal fees and avoids potential fines under RCRA or Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. Then we're going to move on to the types of materials that are being recovered and resell. So glass make up about 70 to 75% of the panel weight. Despite making up most of the panel's weight, glass has a low recycling value due to purity requirement for it to be reused in the new panels. But there are plans to monetize glass at a scale too. And then we got the frame section, which is aluminum. Highly recyclable, with market price around like 70 cents to $1 per pound. Then we got the wiring section, which is copper. Holds a significant value as well, priced at $3 to $4 per pound. And then silver, which is only 0.1% of the panel mass. Despite its small proportion, silver is highly valuable, priced at $25 per pound. And lastly, we got the semiconductor, which is silicon. So recovered silicone wafers can be purified and reused, but the value depends on its purity and its market demand. And all these recovered materials like aluminum, glass, and silicone generates $27 to $35 per panel, which is a lot depending on the amount of panels being recycled. And now we're going to move on to the long-term forecast financially. So solar panels, as mentioned before, are typically they typically last like 25 to 30 years, and over 500 million have been installed across the US. This range from a few panels on homes to like thousands in commercial solar farms. As solar capacity grows by about 21% annually, tens of millions are more are will be installed and decommissioned. By 2060, it is estimated that 9.8 million metric tons of solar panels panel waste will accumulate, according to 2019 study. And so to see how much the revenue 9.8 million panels will generate if they were to be recycled, here's a quick math showing you guys the potential of financial benefits. So as you can see, we have the three tables showing one, the revenue, expense, and then the net profits table. So in the revenue section, like I mentioned earlier, the recovered materials, and then we have the tax credit, which is 30. Then we got the landfill fees. So for recycling, for material recovered revenue, you make like $25 to $35 per panel, like mentioned earlier. If you multiply that by 9.8, you make like $265 to $343 million. And then for tax credit, you have 53 to 74 million tax credit, and you save 49 million. And then for cost, recycling cost is 18 to 25 per panel, making it 176 to 245 million when it's multiplied to 9.8 million panels. Then you got the setup and operation cost, which is 5 million to 10 million. And in worst case scenario, you're still making about $112 million. And in the best case scenario, you're making $284 million. So it's very lucrative. And so this table is only talking about the long term, what you're going to get in the long run. So on the next slide, I will share with you the potential annual benefits or the short-term forecast for the financial aspect of this. So in the short term, according to the SiliconValley.com, about 9 million of panels are decommissioned each year, but only 1 million of these are recycled. So if you do if we do the math using the same format, you're projected to make like $11.4 million to $29 million. And those comes from, again, the revenues from the recovered materials tax credit, which is 30%, and landfill fee that you're saving, as well as the cost or the expenses aspect, which is recycling costs and then setup and operation. So if you look at the chart, for 1 million panels, from recovery, you made 27 to 35 million. Tax credit, you have 5.4 million to 7.5 million. And then for, again, you're saving 5 million from the landfill fee because you're recycling it. And then for costs, it would come up to 18 to 25. And then the operation is 500,000 to $1 million. But again, worst case scenario, you're still making 11 to 4 million, and for best case scenario, you're making 29 million. So if you're making this much with just a million panel, imagine the amount of money you will be making if you were to recycle all the panels that are being de-installed each year. Not only that, you are also meeting your sustainability goals. So I would encourage you to tap into this lucrative opportunity, business opportunity. And now I will pass it to our legal advisor, Anna.
Thank you, Yom. I'm Anna, and I'll be talking about the legal aspect of this plan. Proper solar panel disposal is not just an environmental responsibility, it's a legal obligation. As Home Depot seeks to enhance its sustainability initiatives, compliance with federal and state waste management laws is critical. Failing to adhere to these regulations can result in fines, lawsuits, and reputational damage. This section of our presentation will focus on the key legal frameworks that govern solar panel disposal, the risk of noncompliance, and how partnering with SolarCycle ensures that Home Depot remains legally protected while strengthening its ESG commitments. At the federal level, solar panel disposal is primarily regulated under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, RCRA, and the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation and Liability Act, also known as Superfund. These laws govern the handling of hazardous waste and impose strict liability on companies that improperly dispose of toxic materials. Because many solar panels contain lead and cadmium, they fall under hazardous waste regulations, meaning improper disposal can lead to severe legal and financial consequences for Home Depot. If these materials leach into soil or groundwater, Home Depot could be subject to federal enforcement actions, lawsuits, and significant fines of up to $37,500 per violation per day under RCRA. To mitigate these risks, Home Depot needs a structured, legally compliant disposal solution, and this is where a partnership with SolarCycle provides critical advantages. By working with SolarCycle, Home Depot can ensure that all decommissioned solar panels are diverted from landfills and processed in accordance with RCRA guidelines. SolarCycle specializes in recovering valuable materials from old panels, which not only prevents hazardous waste contamination, but also strengthens Home Depot's circular economy initiatives. Furthermore, partnering with an international organization for standardization, or ISO, certified recycling facility allows Home Depot to create a clear legal record of responsible disposal, reducing its exposure to Superfund liability. While federal regulations set a baseline for solar panel disposal, state laws vary significantly, and Texas presents a unique regulatory landscape. Currently, Texas does not have a mandatory solar panel recycling laws, meaning businesses are not legally required to implement take-back or disposal programs. However, this lack of regulation does not mean Home Depot is in the clear. Texas is rapidly becoming the national leader in solar energy expansion, ranking second in the country for installed solar capacity. With this growth, it is only a matter of time before the state implements stricter waste management policies to address the increasing volume of decommissioned panels. By acting now and establishing a structured solar panel take-back and recycling program in Texas, Home Depot can stay ahead of regulatory changes and ensure continued compliance without disruption. A partnership with SolarCycle, which already has a Texas-based recycling facility, provides a strategic advantage. SolarCycle's presence in the state not only reduces transportation costs and logistical challenges, but also positions Home Depot as an industry leader in responsible solar waste management. Failing to comply with solar panel disposal regulations carries significant legal and financial risks. Regulatory penalties are one of the biggest threats. If customers return old solar panels to Home Depot and they are not properly processed through a compliant recycling program, the company could face daily fines, cease and desist orders, and mandatory remediation costs. Under laws like the RCRA and the Superfund, Home Depot could still be held accountable for improper disposal. Under EPA guidelines, the party that first discards solar panels, which in this case would be Home Depot, is responsible for identifying hazardous waste and ensuring proper disposal. Once SolarCycle takes possessions, they become liable for safe and compliant recycling. Both companies share legal responsibility, but for different stages of the process. To mitigate the legal risks, associated with solar panel disposal, Home Depot must implement a legally sound and proactive disposal strategy. Partnering with SolarCycle offers multiple legal advantages that ensure compliance, liability protection, and future regulatory preparedness. Regulatory compliance is critical. SolarCycle specializes in recycling solar panels in accordance with federal and state laws, including the RCRA and the Superfund. By working with an ISO certified recycling facility, Home Depot can ensure that returned solar panels are processed responsibly, reducing the risk of improper disposal and costly penalties that come with it. By taking action now, Home Depot not only protects itself from legal risks, but reinforces its position as an industry leader in sustainable retail practices. In the modern world, our country is constantly finding ways to reshore materials instead of increasing our reliance on other countries. This is where Home Depot can lead the movement of reshoring. By reusing the raw materials and semiconductors instead of sourcing them internationally, we not only save money from manufacturers, shipping, and production, but we also recycle what we've used to be more circular. This is a step in the right direction, not only for Home Depot's ESG and monetary goals, but a step in the right direction for our country. We believe that this is an amazing program, and we would be very happy to discuss the next steps with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, team. I realize I did not give you the 5-minute warning, so I apologize for that, but you are right on time. Fantastic job. Well, thank you so much. And, you know, I'm curious, the problem, it sounds to me like we have a lot of demand for solar panels, right? And the increased demand is causing potential a lot of waste of these panels. Well, it sounds to me like this is a big industry issue for the solar panel industry as in general. So from an ethical and value-based perspective, why is this problem an ethical issue? And why is Home Depot responsible for addressing this when it's an industry issue, it sounds like?
You're right. It is an industry issue. It's a really like broad, wide-spanning issue that like leads all the way to like different countries where these solar panels are manufactured. It's a whole supply chain issue. It's not just one country, one company. As we mentioned in the ethical section of our presentation, it's an issue that needs to be addressed on multiple stages. And if it can be addressed using corporations and other small organizations that are trying to implement these recycling programs like SolarCycle, if we can increase the accessibility through corporations like Home Depot that have the capacity and the logistics to make it possible, then it makes it that much better or more plausible to solve this issue that's industry-wide. Home Depot has done things in the past where they've made recycling more accessible through rechargeable batteries, making themselves a drop-off point for that. I think that if we were to address the issue of solar panel disposal using Home Depot, since they've already done that in the past, I feel like they would definitely, and you guys would definitely want to uphold that and may be a part of the solution towards an industrial problem.
Anybody else want to chime in? I do have a follow-up question to that. So I think you partially addressed the second part of the question, but kind of circling back to the original question is what makes it an ethical issue in this scenario versus it being a business issue?
Typically, the production of solar panels have an impact towards different communities and the environment that can't really represent themselves on a global scale. companies have legal teams and a bunch of resources that help produce and support their business workings. But small communities like the ones I mentioned in Mexico, Chile, Peru, they don't have as many resources or such a stronger voice in order to mitigate the impact of production of solar panels. And just like the environment isn't able to speak for itself. It needs us to kind of fight for it. And if large corporations that have those resources speak up for them, then it just makes it all the better. And I think that Home Depot, as a company with widespread commitments to sustainability and social equity, I think that they have an opportunity to uphold it, in this realm.
Thank you, Dina. And right now, I'd like to open up the questions to our board. Why don't we start with Emily?
Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. First, in regards to the legal aspect, you touched on some of the fines and costs, but I was curious if you have any hard actual costs for some of those fines or the costs associated with non-compliance from a legal standpoint, if you could share more information about that.
So I mentioned in our presentation that the RCRA charges Resource and Recovery Act, the EPA, under that law charges $37,500 per violation per day. I don't have any specific information about the Superfund laws, but that is more on the side of cleaning up hazardous waste.
Thank you. Another question, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I guess the question is, a lot of your metrics seem to be US based considerations. Have you considered Mexico and Canada, where Home Depot also has stores and operations?
So the reason that we chose the US in particular, and like I mentioned Texas, is because of SolarCycle's Texas-based recycling facility. So that would just make it easier for Home Depot or SolarCycle for someone to drop off the solar panels at SolarCycle's recycling facility. It just kind of localizes it. So at this stage, we suggest a partnership specifically in Texas, but depending on the SolarCycle's resources or Home Depot's resources, that could be expanded, as SolarCycle has facilities in other states as well. But Texas is the second largest installed solar capacity, so that's why we chose Texas.
Sorry, just to add something really quick. We also chose Texas, and just to base it in the US, just because in Texas there was the 2021 power crisis where they had an all-time demand for solar energy as a whole, but solar energy. And the opportunity was just clear for us to start it in Texas and keep going from there, especially since SolarCycle is based there.
Thank you. Michael?
Yep, I wanted to, I'm representing the finance department here. So I wanted to ask you some questions about some of your projections. You referenced in various cases between 9 million or 11 million and some other number. If you recycled 1 million out of the 9 million that panels that were, well, you talked about the ones that don't get recycled, and you said 1 million do. But how would it be logistically possible for Home Depot to get 100% of the million that are actually recycled each year? And you built that into your projections. And then let me ask you a second part to that is, in partnering with SolarCycle, do the numbers that you reflect as potential profit or potential benefit to Home Depot, are those before or after the sharing of those monies with SolarCycle?
So when I showed the tables, so the 1 million panels, those are the one that are like recycled like annually. In general, it's like a general like math. To give you guys like a perspective of how much you could make. Since like in this case, Home Depot is more of bringing customer into solar cycle. And then most of the the whole recycling process is for solar cycle to process. So if we're talking in terms of like how much do you get as like Home Depot, I would give it like, this is just a general like estimation for me. I would say you would get like, then again, since Solar Cycle is doing most of the logistic and most of the recycling, they would have a higher percentage of what you are getting. So that would be, I would say, well, at least they have to get like, like maybe like 80 to like 20, so you will get 20% of the revenue, the net profit, and then Home Depot would have like 80 percent.
You might see, because as being representing the financial side of Home Depot, my salary and bonus is based on what I generate. So those are important facts, and for me to be able to analyze whether this is worth the effort on how that partnership would work, right? I mean, not only ethically, but legally and financially, right? Touches on all three of the subjects. So I would like to know that. And then how many locations does Solar Cycle have around the country? We have 2,300 Home Depot stores, but logistically, again, how difficult, expensive is it to get these recycled panels to Solar Cycle? Are they close?
Sorry. So Solar Cycle has currently they have like two like that are already, like one in Texas and the other, I believe, in Arizona, yes. And then right now, like as of right now, like 2025, they're building another one in Georgia. So they're planning that facility that they're building right now is projected to be like finished like mid 2025, so sometime soon.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so I know, Monica, you joined a little late, so if you do have a question that comes up, feel free to just speak up. I have a follow-up question on the ethical issue. If I hear it correctly, what you said was there's a little bit of harm that's created to the communities where the solar panel waste are being disposed in the landfills. Is that right? If that's the case, and what we're trying to do here is move a bunch of solar panels across different locations to where the recycling centers are going to be, and then break them apart and kind of recycle them as much as possible, right? Well, when you break apart solar panels, it does create quite a bit of toxic fumes and lead and all of that stuff. And not to mention, you're moving it across the states and the country or wherever it needs to go for the recycling center. So what are your thoughts around how do you prevent your partnership from perpetrating the issue and just moving the toxic location from one place to another to other communities? How do we prevent that from happening?
So the way we prevent that would be basically depending on Solar Cycle's long-lasting logistics and their legal responsibility. On their website and through their processes, you'll see that they're very thorough with their processes. They already transport all the wasted materials following all the guidelines, and their processes have been shown to be much more efficient. I think getting 90 to 95% of the materials recycled. And I understand where you're coming from of this proposal could lead to extended or an expansion of this contamination in other communities. But I think that the recycling process itself, although it will have drawbacks, every proposal does, it will mitigate the harm to present communities and communities within the whole supply chain. Like, this is not just going to be saving places in America and like Georgia, Texas, like we spoke about, Arizona. It won't just be, the impact won't be seen there. It will be seen in countries worldwide that are part of this entire supply chain that are being hit extremely hard, not just through the manufacturing of solar panels, but even like the mining of smaller materials that are used within them. For example, in China, like the communities are devastated, environments are devastated. But if we are able to emphasize this recycling process, then the mining for those materials will not be depended on as much. And even though some waste and contamination might occur, it won't be as big or on a larger scale as other countries.
Thank you so much. Do we have any additional questions from the judges? All right. Okay. Well, now you can put your board of director hat away, and we are going to move into our feedback session. Your feedback will help the teams take into the consideration for the next round. So why don't we kick it off with Michael?
Okay, well now, since, I can bring in the other teammates of mine. Again, I mentioned earlier, I teach new venture creation. So I hear a lot of pitches and I teach teams how to make pitches. And one of the things you mentioned in a number of things, starting on slide 10, and a bunch of them, you talk about the opportunities for Home Depot, all right, which is a positive expression for Home Depot to consider. But the very first thing that you started off with was saying, you said, Home Depot, you're not living up to your potential. And my suggestion would be that you not challenge them as you're starting to make your way and kind of get your foothold there. It's always good. Be like if I said, you're not making the grades that in school that you should be making. Well, so now you're going to be a little defensive. So start off with them on your side, because you said a lot of times what a great opportunity it is, right? And I agree with you. I think your presentation was really great. I do think you didn't specifically mention any competitors, and I'd like to know. I would like to know, if I was an executive committee member for Home Depot, I want to know is, besides Solar Cycle, who else is doing this? Maybe they have more locations. Maybe there's less of, from an ethics point of view, there's less carbon footprint by dealing with somebody who has more locations to be able to do this, or a process that's maybe cleaner or more efficient. But I'd want to know that. And then I think you did a great job. I just want to make sure that you start off with people on your side, right? Rooting for you and understanding that you're there for their benefit, to help them solve this problem. But you also, besides the ethics and the legal part of it, you really have to deal with the financial side, because big corporations like Home Depot want to do well, but if it costs too much, they won't. So you have to help them over that hurdle. And so anyway, that was my comments.
Thank you so much, Michael. Emily.
Great presentation. For the record, I don't work at Home Depot. I was just trying to be in the role play, so forgive me on that. I work at a sustainability consulting firm, just for context. But I thought you all had a really great presentation. I loved the consistent backgrounds that you all have, and really coming to us as a team and, playing your role. I thought you addressed us as Home Depot and really were in that role playing, which I thought was really great. And you were very compelling in your address, and just, you were very well researched and kind of knew your stuff. So great job overall on that. One tiny piece of feedback I would say, in the financial section with your headings, or with your table of financial information, I would recommend just including a heading for those. I know you had the long term and the short term, but just a little bit more context or information on that, just to make it a little easier to follow. That's just because there's a lot of numbers on that. As somebody who is not a financially savvy person, and just, you're going to have different disciplines, I think, in the room. So trying to make it as digestible as possible for folks. But overall, I thought you all had a really compelling case. And I do agree with Michael's point of perhaps including, other companies beyond solar cycle, or maybe the reasoning behind how you selected them, or maybe you did some sort of evaluation process to select them. That would be helpful to understand as well. But great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Monica?
Yes. And my apologies, team, for joining late. There was a mix-up on my calendar. But from the parts of your presentation that I was able to see, I want to say kudos to you guys. First off, you're all dressed very professionally. So really impressed with how you're showing up in your presence. You guys have great confidence, so it's clear that you guys have practice and you're well researched and you're well prepared. So that really shows in your executive presence in the presentation, and that's key. I also heard great passion around your, the problem statement, the recommendation, which is very compelling, in my opinion, that there really is an issue that needs to be solved for. And you guys are very passionate about your recommendation being one that can help. And in terms of recommendations, I heard like the global need, in terms of like for smaller scale countries that don't necessarily have the resources, and how, the large scale companies could help ensure some more consistency there. I recommend elaborating more on that, of like, what is a scalable way that large scale companies can do that for the countries that don't have access to the resources that they need. Because we also make the assumption that the large scale companies, know what needs to be done, but they need clarity on the steps they need to take in order to do that. So providing them with more detail on that would be beneficial in the presentation.
Thank you so much, Monica. And Emily, you played the role so well early on that we were so lucky to have one of the board members from Home Depot with us. So great job on that. A fantastic job, team. You definitely did your research and you put together a very well done presentation, and you all showed up very professionally. One recommendation that I have is you definitely picked a very important and impactful issue that is up and coming. And this issue itself has multi-dimensions, right? Global impact. So in your solution, in order to garner some more credibility and making sure that you have some of the answers ready for what the questions could be, is really thinking your solution from a multi-dimensional perspective. Kind of what I was saying is, yes, you are engaging a third party to increase in that recycling, because right now landfill is creating harm. But what other issue is your solution causing? Are there ramifications or impact that moving these panels to different communities might have, right? So if you have a company that could be thinking, I'm going to place my recycling facility in the cheapest place possible, well, maybe there could be communities that are impacted and they don't have a voice where those facilities could be. So there's a lot of different dimensions you kind of want to think through. Is your solution causing harm that you might not be aware of, right? And it's a complicated problem to solve for, because the more you think about it, the more like, oh crap, there's more issues that can come out of this. But overall, great job, and really appreciate the time and effort that you've put in. And thank you so much for the judges for joining and spending time with us today. We wish you all the very best tomorrow and the rest of the week. And thank you again.